interested in.
Sure, sure. Anyone want to start your point of view about veganism and vegan? Suwani?
Sure. Hi, doctor. I'm Monica.
She's
Hi.
my sister, doctor.
Hello.
Hi, hello. I hear you. Yes, Monica.
Hello. Is it my voice audible?
Yeah, it's audible. It's audible. You can talk, Moni.
I think that she freezes there.
Yeah, there's a network issue.
Usually we used to freeze in Canada, not in India. So,
You
Monica,
got
can you hear
struck.
me?
Yes.
Can-
Hi, doctor. Yes. Now, now it sounds clear. So, firstly, I grew this interest on veganism after watching a YouTube video. Then I realized that we are doing so much violence by drinking this milk and whatever thing we are doing. So, I just wanted to stop that. So recently, after watching that video, what I realized is veganism is okay. Our health is not going to be impacted, but only thing is we have to take vitamin B12 supplements in order to make a vitamin B12. But I have a question, that is there any other natural way to acquire that vitamin B12 in our body? Then I also searched regarding this on many articles. I read many articles on this. What I realized, what they were saying is that vitamin B12 is something, is a byproduct of the bacteria which is in our stomach. So there is no need to take externally. That was they were saying. So I just wanna discuss that with you.
Excellent. Very, very good question. And I see that you definitely learned the material and you read about the subject. So I'm very glad to open the discussion with the vitamin B12, because vitamin B12 is something that is quite often asked about. Okay, so if I'm speaking too fast, let me know, Aishwa, and I can make it slower. So I can and another thing, Aishwa, you can record this session.
I'm recording. I'm recording.
Excellent, and then we can use it, reuse
Yeah,
it.
sure, definitely. I'm recording.
Okay, so Monica, back to your question. Your question is excellent because it's a very, very common one.
Okay.
So vitamin B12, actually you asked two questions in one. The first part of the question was why to take B12, which is not natural way to get the B12.
Yes.
That's one. And the second one, why do we need B12 at all if we have bacteria in our gut that that actually does the work? So why do we need it?
Yeah.
So let's start with the first question. B12 is one of the vitamins that you cannot get from any food. There are very rare exceptions that I can mention. Usually in food you cannot get B12. The reason is that B12 is the product of bacteria, and it's usually not in food normally. Now it is in meat because the meat itself has bacteria in their gut, and that's why the B12 is there. However, most of it, if not all of it, is destroyed when you cook the meat. Now, so you don't get the B12 even through the meat. If you add to it also the absorption that reduces with age, you cannot absorb very well the B12. So even those, and I see many of those that eat a lot of meat, they don't have enough B12 because they don't absorb it very well. So B12, to conclude it, is not a good, there is no good way to get it normally from any food, including meat. Now, the B12 that is produced with our bacteria, yes, it is produced with our bacteria, but the problem is that the bacteria that uses the B12 or produces the B12 is in the what's called the colon. The colon is the last part of the gastrointestinal tract, and the place to absorb the B12 is much earlier in the small intestines. Therefore, the B12 that produced by the bacteria there, most of the time is not very useful to us. Now, in previous days, in ancient days, people got the B12 because the fruits and the vegetables, they were not washed very well, and also bacteria were on them, and we could get more B12. These days, we wash very carefully, and good that we do it. We wash very carefully the fruits and the vegetables, and that's also take the B12, remove the B12 from them as well. That's why we need outside sources of B12, and I recommend to everyone to take B12 1000 microgram daily in order to replenish.
Doctor, can you please unmute yourself? Yeah, we have been muted. Can you please unmute, doctor?
Or that automatically been a mute? How long
I mean,
is
like,
it?
many people are being adding, right? So there might be some disturbance. So I muted all so that everyone can mute whenever required.
Okay, okay. So now it's okay?
Yeah, it's fine. Please go ahead.
So I recommended to take B12 supplement 1000 microgram every day for everyone, including even those that eat meat, because many times we see that the B12 is not enough. And the reason is that low B12 can have a very dire consequences. It causes neurological problems. It can cause people can feel tingling in the feet and the hands. People don't function well. It can cause depression. Can cause many things that people don't realize that it is because of the B12. So that's why I would suggest to take B12. And when you take B12, my recommendation is to take it under the tongue, to dissolve it under the tongue, not to swallow it. Okay? So to take 1000 microgram under the tongue until you reach a good level of B12. Every lab has its own levels, but here I would recommend 400 microgram and above. And once it reaches this level, I would recommend to reduce the B12 to about 2 to 3 times a week. You don't need to take it every day. You can reduce it to 2 or 3 times a week, and that will be enough. But the important thing, and that's a mistake that some do, it's important to take the B12 under the tongue and not to swallow it. Okay, so that's more or less summarizes, I would say, the B12. There is a lot to talk about the B12, and we can fill out an hour only about B12. For instance, how to diagnose it, and how to recognize if you have enough or not enough, and what does it cause. But I think that for your question, that more or less answers the question, isn't it, Monica?
Yes, yes. Thank you, doctor. But I have one more question. Like you have been saying that the byproduct produced by the bacteria is not productive, or is, is that the thing you were saying, or is there any way that we can make that productive, whatever byproduct is produced by bacteria, like vitamin B12?
I'm not sure that I got the question. You ask about B12 produced by the bacteria.
The bacteria in our gut, is there any way that we can make it productive? Whatever the bacteria is producing B12, can we enhance this by doing our diet changes or something?
Okay, there is a whole bunch of a new approach these days that I'm sure that you heard about what's called the probiotics. Did you hear about probiotics?
Uh,
Probiotics,
mm,
probiotics is, probiotics is, I can say it in a simple way, it's a food for the bacteria in our gut, in our
okay.
intestines. Now, it's very, very interesting subject by itself because what happens, the main research, a lot of research is done these days about the bacteria that we have in our gut,
Okay.
because these bacteria, they do a lot of different things that we didn't pay enough attention to them. Because it's not only the bacteria that produce B12, there are many cultures that do different kinds of things, and we actually dependent on them. So the whole bacteria that we have in our gut, the number of the bacteria that we have there is much more than the number of the cells that we have in our body. That is amazing thing. So we have, you can look at it that we have a full organism in our body that is not us, but it works with us. So we work together and you don't even know it. It sounds like science fiction, but it's very real. We have the full organism in our gut, which is consists of many bacteria together, and they work together in order to produce many substances that are very important to our existence. One of them is the B12, but there are many that the science starts to recognize that they are produced by the bacteria in our gut, and we cannot produce them by ourselves. So the ways that we can survive and to survive better is to make sure that these bacteria in our gut will survive and will be healthy. So most of the people that I'm talking with them these days that are not, let's say, professional or close to the medical field, when I'm talking about bacteria, they think about bad bacteria. We heard about bacteria that we need to destroy with antibiotics, right? That's what we know. We know that bacteria cause disease. But most of the people don't realize that more than 95% of the bacteria are bacteria that either good for us or not harming us. So most of the bacteria, the big amount of bacteria are bacteria that we need, are bacteria that without them we won't survive. And what happens when we take antibiotics? When we take antibiotics, many times we destroy the good bacteria and we enable the bad bacteria to grow there. And that's very important to tell to everyone that listen right now, not to take antibiotics if he or she doesn't need it. Okay, because to take antibiotics when it's not completely necessary, it's very harmful. It destroys the bacteria, the good bacteria, and it enables the bad bacteria to grow. Okay, so the new the science these days goes towards understanding what is this culture of bacteria consist of, or what they need. What they need is, between other things, one of the most important things is they need food as well. So the bacteria that in our gut, they need food, and the food that they need is called probiotics. Okay, now where do you get the probiotics? The probiotics that you get is almost completely, I would say, from plants. It's not from meat, it's not from animal products, it's from plants. And not only from plants, it's from the fibers of the plants. There is a new book that came out in May 2020, which I would recommend to everyone that can purchase, listen to it, or read it. It's called Fiber Fueled. Fiber Fueled, and maybe I can find it somewhere between my. Let me see if I can find it here. Yeah. So this is the book that I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it?
We can see it. We can see it.
This is a book that came
Yes,
out
see it.
in 2020, May 2020. Highly recommended by Dr. Will Wulsevich. He's a gastroenterologist from the United States, and he researched a lot in order to provide us with a lot of good information in this book, how to feed these bacteria and what is their role, a lot of good information in this book. So back to your question, what can we do in order to help these bacteria that in our gut to produce more B12? The answer is give them the right food. The right food is give them fibers, give them probiotics, and that will help them to grow and to produce more good things for us. However, the problem with the B12 still is that this bacteria lies down in the gastrointestinal tract, and it is not so effective. So even with the probiotics, we don't get enough B12, and that's why I recommend in any case, besides probiotics, I really recommend to take probiotics, but besides that, to take B12 supplement.
Okay. Okay, doctor.
There are several others vitamins and minerals that I would recommend to take regularly, but maybe we could answer that in a different question. Okay. Any other questions?
What do you think, doctor? Let's start this session. So
I cannot hear you.
You can't hear me?
Not clear.
Okay. Can we start
Okay.
this session so that people are joining? It is almost 11, right? I mean, 10:30 there and 11 for us. So shall we start? People are joining, so they might reach up at the time by the time of your session.
Okay. So
If you want me to wait, we can wait. Your choice.
right now we see 48 people joined, and I don't think that we need to wait. I just
we can
wanted to
start.
make sure that I'm addressing the main questions that most of the people have. So you can direct
Anyway, it
me,
is recorded. Yeah, anyway, it is recorded. Yeah, so we
you can
start.
direct me exactly if I'm on the right track to what the people are looking for. If I understand it correctly, what the people are interested in is why vegan, what vegan can offer, and why to go vegan at all, and actually what is vegan. Let's start from very basic question. Okay, so I'm sure that many of the people that hear me now, they know what is vegetarian. Okay, so vegetarian, it means to avoid any product that comes from animals. However, there are some that are, the vegetarian is divided into several groups. And most of the time that the people and the patients that I treat, and there are many of them that came from India, I see that most of the people that came from India are what's called a lacto-vegetarian. Now, what is lacto-vegetarian? Is being vegetarian that consumes also milk or dairy products, something that comes from cow milk. And that's very, very prevalent in India. Many many vegetarians in India don't eat meat at all, and they don't eat also fish, and and also they don't eat eggs. Those that eat eggs, it's called ovo-vegetarian. So there are ovo-vegetarian, there are lacto-vegetarian, there is ovo-lacto or lacto-ovo-vegetarian. That means that they eat also dairy product, also eggs and vegetables, but they don't eat meat. So there are people of different, the vegetarian, as you can see, they have different variation. However, when we talk about vegan, it means not to consume any animal product. An animal product, it includes all types of meat, so from any animal, fish, any product of animal, it means everything that animal produces. What are the things that animal produces? Eggs, dairy, and all the elements of dairy like cheese. And that means in a different way, that means plant-based. Plant-based is being dependent on everything that comes from plants, from the ground. Now, this is plant-based. There are, when we talk about veganism, it goes a way farther, because the veganism, they also don't want, they have another part to it, which is not harming the animal. And in that case, not to use the animal to any other purpose, like experiments, like using them for cosmetics, using them to any other products, not only for food. So if we take this part of the vegan, it's beyond food alone, but also it's a very, I would say, a value thing, it's a moral thing, it's ethics that it is related to vegan. There is another part to vegan. So the vegan, we have food, not to consume anything that comes from animal. There is the part of the ethical vegan, which means not to abuse any animals to human purposes. And the third part is to help the environment, because we know that using the whole animal production by itself is one of the reason, I would say, to pollute the environment, and also put a lot of burden, I would say, on the economy. So the economical reason and environmental reasons are very strong parts of veganism in total. So we have these three pillars in vegan: the food, I would say, animals, compassion, ethical, and the environmental and economical. All these things comprise, I would say, in total, the vegan movement. Now, most of the people that I'm talking with, they are very interested in the vegan, especially from the health purpose. Many of them, I would say 75%, are interested in why vegan is good from the health purpose. And interesting enough, many studies show that this is the right way to go. And how you do these studies? There are many ways to do these studies. For instance, if you look at populations that naturally they are based on plant-based, and you compare them, and I'm talking about a big number of people, and you compare them to people that are vegetarian, and you compare them to people that are omnivore, which means that they eat everything. They eat also meat and other stuff. So we have three populations. We have omnivores that eat everything. We have vegetarian, which is lacto-vegetarian or ovo-vegetarian, and we have vegans. And when you follow these three groups over time, they found with large amount of people over time that the vegan group survived much longer with a better quality of life and much less diseases. And that led to many, many research to show and to understand why plant-based is better and healthier than many other, that any other, I would say, way of living. That's why vegan, and that's the definition of vegan, and that's why vegan. Now, if we are talking about the harmful effect of other things that are not vegan, I can refer all of you. I think that it's a very good documentary. Those that you have access to this documentary, you can watch it in YouTube. It's about 90 minutes of good documentaries that will explain why what I'm saying right now is it's based on research and science. I can refer you to what's called What the Health. Again, What the Health. And that is do you want maybe to write it down on the chat? I can write down for you on the chat that you will see.
Actually, we already wrote, doctor. It's okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
What else? Yeah, I see. Documentary. Thank you. You were very quick. I would say that if you will watch it, you will see that it's based on what is the research, what other physicians that are very much into the subject are saying, and you will understand better what I'm talking about, because I cannot give so many evidences in a very short time. But you can, and I don't want you just to believe to what I'm saying. I want you to look at it, to experience, and to understand, and then only to maybe to change. Now, many people come and ask me, you know, I'm basically vegetarian and I'm doing all the good things, but I'm just drinking milk because, you know, I know the tradition in India is that milk is good for you, milk is good for the bones, milk is good for the, you know, you get your calcium. And there are even people that came and told me, you know, this milk is a source of B12. So I want to debunk all this myth right now very clearly. Milk is not a source of calcium, and milk is not a source of B12 unless it is enforced, unless it is injected with calcium and B12. They add the calcium and B12 to the milk, yes, then it will be enriched with calcium and B12. However, if they don't add it from the outside sources, it will be even reducing the calcium. There are studies that show if you compare places that drink milk to places that don't drink milk, the osteoporosis, you know what's the osteoporosis is, the weakness of the bones is much more significant, I would say, in places that drink milk as compared to those that don't drink milk. So I want to debunk this thing right away. Milk is not a source of calcium. It's not a source of B12 at all. And in addition, you get a lot of things that you don't need from milk, like pus from the cow. and other things that you really don't need in milk. It's so serious that the pediatrics and every place they say that babies shouldn't drink milk in their first months of life. The best milk that they can drink is, of course, breast milk. This is the only, if I can say, non-plant-based milk that would highly recommended. Is this is the only milk. No other milk is recommended for humans. And just keep in mind that the milk is meant to feed the calf. The calf is the baby cow. I hope, I'm sure that nobody here, no mom or dad, would like to see their baby as a baby cow. Okay, so it's not for babies, it's not for humans. Now, you can easily replace the milk with any other source of milk that can be enriched the same way with B12 and with calcium, like almond milk, soy milk, cashew milk, coconut milk, rice milk. You have so many options these days that you can find for sure the ones that you like the most, and that will be excellent. You can go for a variety of different kinds of milks that will be tasty, healthy, and you don't need to rely on cow milk that can create different kinds of issues and problems that you can watch them in the documentaries that we referred you before that. So that's the thing about the milk, or the vegetarians, that they say, oh, I'm just drinking milk here and there. So it's better to eliminate it and to get the milk from other sources and to stay fully plant-based. And for India, I would say this is most of the people there can easily adapt to the plant-based, because most of them are already based on vegetarian, and the changes that they need to do is not a really big change. So that's what we talked about, the vegetarian and the milk. I want to draw your attention to something that I saw it quite a bit, and it also appeared in the movie. And you won't believe it when you hear it. It's amazing, and it's a fact. Many people, especially those that coming from India, many people that I treat, they have diabetes. You heard about diabetes, you know about diabetes. Diabetes can be completely eliminated, I would say, in a very high percentage, by adapting just a very simple changes, to change the lifestyle, to change mainly, I would say 80% the food, and adding to it some activities. You don't need to do much. Some activity like 30 minutes a day or even 20 minutes a day, but do it persistently every day. Changing to plant-based food, as we discussed so far, and I can tell you that I have quite a bit of people that were even dependent on insulin, that they took drugs in order to treat their diabetes. The doctors told them, you will need drugs forever, through all your life, because of your diabetes. You have a genetic predisposition to diabetes because your mother or your father had diabetes. So, to let you know, genetics plays a role. It plays a role, but it's only 20%. The most important part is your lifestyle. And your lifestyle is 80%. It's a lot in your hand. So even if your mother and father are diabetic, and your brother and your sister, all of them are diabetic, by changing lifestyle, there is a good chance And I'm not saying that it is 100%, but there is a very good chance. And we saw that to either reduce the medication significantly or completely eliminate it. And I can, by chance, I can see here one of the people that did it. And I think that you can maybe add a little bit your story, Jerry.
Can you hear me, Dr. Gross?
Yes.
So I was diagnosed with diabetes in 2011. I'm now 75 years old, and I switched to a plant-based diet, a whole food plant-based diet, which could be described as vegan, except that we emphasize whole foods, whole plants, whole vegetables, whole fruits. So in 2013, my wife and I watched a video called Forks Over Knives, and I would highly recommend that video for anybody who has any chronic illness, especially diabetes or heart disease. And so since watching that video, after doing more research, my wife and I both adopted the whole food plant-based diet, and I haven't been on any medication, no medication at all, since 2013. Initially, when I was diagnosed with diabetes, I was placed on a typical diabetes drug called metformin. And so I stayed on it until I changed my lifestyle, and both from a diet point of view and as well as Dr. Gross mentioned, just a little bit of exercise. My favorite exercise is walking, and so I try to walk at least a half hour a day. And so between the whole food plant-based diet and the exercise, as I say, I am completely medication free, and so is my wife. And as an added bonus, my wife also lost the arthritis that she had in her knee. And she was initially just following the plant-based diet to support me, but she ended up having a benefit as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have about that.
Anyone would like to ask any questions? The doctor or for the Jeremy?
Can you please share me the link of this? Can you please, doctor? Can you please share me the link?
Hello. Hi, doctor.
The video of the video.
Is there any questions there?
Yeah, he's trying to ask. Please go ahead.
Yeah, sir.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm Shravan from India. Hello, doctor.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Recently, my mother has undergone a brain tumor surgery. Does veganism does it help to recover her from that tumor? Is there any way? She is suffering from grade 4 tumor.
Yes.
Is there any
ahead.
chance if she if she switched to veganism, is there any chance that tumor she will get rid of the tumor?
Okay. So I had a question regarding brain tumor. Okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't get completely your name. What's your name?
My name is Shravan.
Shawani?
Please turn on the video if possible. If possible.
Sorry?
Just to make the conversation more interactive.
1 second. 1 second.
What do I need to
Sure,
do?
sure. No, I just asked him to turn on the video so that it would be more interactive.
Okay, good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. He's just said he need a second to.
I see
Okay.
my video.
So regarding brain tumor, thank you for the question. Okay, so I can start from several points to answer your question. Let's say that we have more and more evidence that plant-based, or as Jerry mentioned, whole food plant-based, which I want to a little bit elaborate on what Jerry said. It's not only, and that's very important to put the emphasis there, it's not only not to eat meat, because people think, oh, I don't eat meat, I'm vegan. Or
Okay.
that's not enough. In order to eat properly, it's important to eat what is called whole food plant-based, which means that you don't eat junk food, because plant-based can be also junk. There is a lot of sugars and a lot of candies that are based completely on plant, but they are not healthy and they're highly processed. So that's not what we mean when we talk about healthy diet. Healthy diet is to have a whole food as much as possible. It means as close as to its natural sources. So whole food, plant-based, that's one of the principles. One of the principles is to have it as close as to its principle. I would say as much as you can eat raw, but I'm not advocating for raw vegan. I'm advocating for to have most of your, or to have a lot of raw, but at least 25% or 30% that it will be cooked. Because there are some vegetables, like tomatoes, it's a very good example, that the lycopenes in the tomatoes come out much more available when you cook them. So it's very important also to cook, but the most of the food needs to be raw and as close as possible to be fresh. So there is a lot of things to say there. And the second principle, which is very important, is to have a variety of food, not to stick to something, to one thing, and to have really variety of food, which means beans and grains and all type of vegetables in different colors, and fruit and mushrooms and nuts. You have plenty of options there. Don't stick to one thing. Make it variety. And that's very important principle. Now, if you follow this, I would like to refer you to to a book that actually started my journey in the vegan society, and that was 10 years ago. I came across a book that is called No to Cancer. And No to Cancer, yes. And this was a book that was published by, the author was Daniel Servan-Schreiber. Maybe someone can Google it while I'm talking, and to show it.
Sure, doctor. I can find it. You can go ahead.
Okay.
I can find that.
Find it, and maybe to share the screen, and people can see it. So by Daniel Servan-Schreiber, and just to give you a short description, because it's very relevant to your question. Daniel Servan-Schreiber was a scientist. He was a physician, a psychiatrist actually, and a neuroscientist. Very, very accomplished researcher that was very good in research and did a lot of research. And he was one of the founders, I would say, of Physicians Without Borders. Probably you heard about this group all over the world. And in one of the experiments that they did with MRI machine, you know, MRI machine is the machine that check the brain. And they did different kind of psychological tests, and they test how the people react to different kinds of questions and those kind of things with the brain. It's actually fMRI. And they did the test and they wanted to see how the brain reacts. And in one of the experiments, they didn't have the person that was supposed to go there under the machine, he didn't show up. And to have this time with the machine is very expensive. They didn't want to lose this option. So he went under the machine in order to check it. And unfortunately, completely by surprise, they found that he had a brain tumor. And that's when he started to research to see what he can do. The physician at that time gave him 6 months to live. It was very advanced stage of brain tumor, very big. And he started to research to see how he can treat it, and what he can do in order to reduce the, in order to mitigate, I would say, this disaster. And lo and behold, and to make the long story short, 16 years after, he shared it with many people what was his research and what he found that helped him to survive 16 years instead of 6 months. And that's actually the essence of this book, which is called Anti-Cancer, if I'm not mistaken. Did you find it? It's called Anti-Cancer.
Yes, doctor. We shared the links and about the book and book title too.
Can you
Excellent.
please spell the name?
Say no to cancer.
Yes, it's called
Okay.
Anti-Cancer.
Yeah.
Anti-Cancer.
And
the subtitle is Say No to the Cancer, but it's called Anti-Cancer, and you can find it. And there he recommended very strongly to reduce all the animal products.
yeah, she is a vegetarian.
He didn't say in this book completely vegan, but when you do the research, Jerry shared with us, and you continued, and that was, as I said, more than 10 years ago. When you do all this research and you go and to check what is really good for you, apparently is to eliminate completely the animal product will be the best way to go. So
Okay.
to answer your question, yes, it can help. To tell you that this is the only remedy that you need to stick it, I wouldn't recommend it. I would say that for this kind of diseases, the Western medicine and the science, they have good tools these days to work with such diseases. So I wouldn't say to go completely with only food and to neglect the Western medicine, but it can definitely help. So healthy lifestyle, as you heard before, like changing the diet, eat better, has to have a good physical exercise, to breathe good air, good water, and all of that will be very, very helpful in combating any diseases, any chronic diseases that you can think about, and including cancer. I can tell you that I participated just recently. Jerry was present at the time in a presentation that we were with another couple that described their journey into a whole food plant-based. And the person that described there was in advanced stage of bladder cancer. The physician, again, they didn't give him much to live. He changed his diet, whole food plant-based, and few years after, I don't remember how many years after that, I don't know, Jerry, if you remember, but few years after that, he was If I'm not mistaken, he said even they couldn't find cancer anymore. And that was amazing. So I cannot say that this is the only remedy, but it definitely can help. I hope that this answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, doctor. You mentioned about good water. Good water in the sense regularly in India, here we use RO water, reverse osmosis water. Is that good, or you mean natural water?
Okay, that's a good question. What is I don't know which water do you use. However, the important thing is that you know, water is, there is a whole section about water, how to use and what is a good water. If you want to know more about this, I have things that yeah, I have in with me right now. Watch this one.
Super life.
Okay, so this this person talks a lot about what is a good water. In my opinion, he's going a little bit too far, because you don't need to be I would say you don't need to do scientifically design water. You just need to make sure that the water is clean, that they have a natural source, that they don't have any additional metal in them, because it very much depends in how you get your water. If your water is from natural sources and not through old pipes that can corrode and can have some metal dissolve some metal into the water as they go through the pipe, I would say that will be a good way to check it. He's talking also about alkalinization of the water and other stuff that is related to water. Water by itself is a very interesting issue. The thing is that not everything is based on science completely, so it's a tricky way to go. I would say that if your water is from a natural source and you make sure that there are no metal in there, just check it once in a while and make sure that you don't have any unnecessary solvents there. And if that is the case, because I don't know exactly where the source of the water that you get it from, but if it is checked, if it is clean, if it has it comes from natural sources, it should be okay. And that should be the main and the important beverage to consume is water, not juices. This is important. I'm digressing a little bit right now to talk about juicing, because many people think, okay, if I'm taking now a juice from the carrot or orange or other stuff, it's healthy, it's natural. No, it's not. Because if you juice something, if you take the pulp, the fibers out of the juice, what you get is pure sugar. So it's not healthy. And that's I want to make sure, because many people go and drink these energy juices and other stuff that all the publication and advertisement try to convince you that it is healthy. So make sure if you drink something, the best thing will be water, but next to it, if you want, drink smoothie. So smoothie, it means that in blender you put all the fruit inside and not separating the fiber from the fruit. So don't drink pure juice. Okay? So water is the best thing that you can drink and you should drink, and that's at least between 2 to 3 liters a day. And that's very, very important. Keep in mind that our body, everyone, without exception, our body is about 70% water. Okay, so most of us are body, most of us are water. It's very, very important to drink it abundant of water and not to neglect it. Many people, because they are so busy at work, they are so you know, they occupied, they forget to drink water. Very important. And thank you for the question.
Yeah, what is this lukewarm water or regular water?
Sorry, what is the first water?
No, they always tell me it's better to have warm water rather than cold water.
Oh, that's doesn't matter at all. Okay,
Okay.
if you drink cool, warm, lukewarm, what I would suggest is to drink the ones that you like, the ones that you feel that it is working for you. If you want to get it with green tea, even better. Okay, green tea is a good, it's very healthy, and usually people like to drink it hot, but you can also make green tea and drink it cold. It will be fine. So whatever you can, if it is hot, lukewarm, or cold, never mind. If you drink the amount of water that you can drink, with which we mentioned 2 to 3 liters, never mind what temperature.
Is there any time that before food, after food, is there any such case, whether before, while eating, in between?
Okay, so yes, there are some approaches to it. They say not to eat water with food, or to eat water with food. I would say that you need to go with your body. If you feel that you drink with the food, or after the food you feel better, go with it. Okay, if you drink before that and you feel better, go with it. The important thing is that you will have the amount of water that you need per day. Okay, that's much more important than if you drink it with food or after food.
Okay, thank you.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyone else want to ask the questions? I mean, is
Okay.
anyone ready to ask the question? Please unmute yourself and you can go ahead.
Hello, doctor. Am I audible?
Yeah,
Yes.
you are Suwani. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hello.
Yes. Yes. I
We
can
have,
hear you.
yes, sir. We have taken responses with the Google form. So there are questions like people are still. I think you already have mentioned about milk and calcium thing, but there are many questions who want to still get clarification about have calcium being in milk. So can you please put a little more explanation on this thing that milk doesn't have calcium and we don't have to drink milk especially to have calcium in our diet. So can you please put some light on it? So as we have participants now added after you talked about milk. So could you please explain it again?
Yes. Yes, for sure. Okay. So if I understand correctly, the question is how can, or what is the right way to get calcium?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. So calcium is definitely important to get. Let's start from there. And a good source of calcium, which is natural, is to consume green leafy vegetables. Okay, what is green leafy vegetables? Green leafy vegetables are broccoli, Swiss chards, kale, spinach. Spinach I would put last because it has also oxalate, but I don't want to get into it right now. But all the green leafy, if you see green leaf, and the more dark that they are, the more green, it's better. So it's a good source of calcium. Okay. Now, in addition, there are many beverages that are enriched with calcium, that they add calcium to them, like the milk that you mentioned, it's just added. But the same way it is added to soy milk or to other milks, that they can add calcium and you can get the calcium from there. I would recommend for especially women after a certain age, like 50, I would recommend to take in addition 600 milligram of calcium as a supplement, because many times they don't get enough calcium. So it's not only calcium, it's calcium and vitamin D. These are the two things that go together, because vitamin D, which is very important nutrition, usually you get it, and in India probably you get quite a bit of it by exposing to the sun. However, people in India, they have darker skin. And when you have darker skin, the amount that you get from the sun is reduced. So you need more exposure to the sun. However, to be more exposed to the sun causes skin problems, including skin cancer. So what happened? People put sunscreen and then expose themselves to the sun. That doesn't give them enough vitamin D. Okay? That's why even in India and even in the summer, I would suggest to consume vitamin D. Okay? Take vitamin D and calcium, and that will help to absorb more calcium, and that will give you enough calcium that you need. So every woman, and I would suggest it also for men, but especially women, because we see more osteoporosis in a older age. But in order to prevent it, you need to start earlier, as early as you stop to get the period. When you stop menstruation and the estrogen levels goes down, sorry, then I would suggest to start to use the calcium and the vitamin D. Okay?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Also, sir, we do have questions like the main intention started with women asking me about how is it going to help for women who are expecting pregnancy and who are already having pregnancy, and if they're if they are going to follow vegan diet, is it going to affect them, or how it's gonna be beneficial for them to immediately convert their diet into vegan?
Yes. Pregnancy, vegan is completely safe in pregnancy. It's completely safe in pregnancy. There is, remind me after, there is a amazing book that came out just for pregnancy, vegan in pregnancy, which give the whole tips how to keep yourself healthy during pregnancy with being plant-based. And there is no problem to be pregnant and to keep plant-based, as well as for children, you know, very young children. Besides breastfeeding, you know, after starting to eat, they can be completely vegan, and it's completely okay for them. So we have enough information that that shows that it is healthy, and it's good for pregnancy and for children as well. So no problem there, and I would warmly recommend to find, I don't know if I have it right now in front of me, but yes, you can be completely vegan and during pregnancy. That's the answer.
Okay, thank you. And please, any of anyone from the participants, please do ask your questions.
Now, if there is no question, we can, Aishwa, you can collect questions later on from people that might send you a question.
There's one question, doctor, from one of the participants, like how to replenish the dead bacteria. Like probiotics are good to gut bacteria, but they don't replenish the dead bacteria. So what is any other thing to replace?
Okay, so this is a good question, because yes, people, there are several bad bacteria that you can suffer from, and ask your family physician about the bacteria. There is a bad bacteria that is very common that lies in the stomach. The name of this bacteria is called, it's a little bit long name, it's called Helicobacter pylori. Okay, Helicobacter pylori is a bacteria that lies in the stomach, and there is special tests these days to check it and to identify or diagnose people that have Helicobacter pylori in the stomach. In the past, people thought that, you know, I'm sure some of you that are, let's say, older, 50 or 60, they remember that in the past, people were going, they undergo surgery. They underwent surgery in order to treat ulcers, you know, ulcers in the stomach, which is a small wound in the stomach. Or people got cancers in the stomach. Later on, it was a revolution, I would say, in medicine, that they found that many of those ulcers are caused by a bacteria. And by eradicating this bacteria, which is called the Helicobacter pylori, they could save people's life without cancer, without ulcers. It was amazing. It's really a revolution. Now, how to treat this bacteria? By strong antibiotics for 2 weeks, usually, and that eradicate this bad bacteria. So strong antibiotics can take the bad bacteria off. However, as I said before, strong antibiotics also kills some of the good bacteria. So what we need to do is to help the good guys against the bad guys. How do we help them? By probiotics. So to give antibiotics to eradicate the bad guys, the Helicobacter pylori, but in addition to give probiotics in order to replenish the good bacteria. Now, this is one example that is very common. There are other examples that bad bacteria can lie in other places in the gastrointestinal tract. There is another very common example, like it's called Clostridium difficile. It's another bacteria that is a very, very troublesome bacteria that causes a lot of issues to people. And that's many times it's a result of taking antibiotics, unnecessarily or necessarily even, but taking antibiotics. And what happened when the good bacteria are weakened because of the antibiotics, the balance between the good and the bad bacteria is changed, and because of that, the good bacteria can win. And it's very hard in this case, for instance, of Clostridium difficile. Many times it's very hard to treat it. Unlike the Helicobacter pylori, that you need to take antibiotics for 2 weeks, strong antibiotics for 2 weeks. In the Clostridium difficile case, it sometimes can be very, very sad stories that people for years suffers and they cannot get away from this bad bacteria that make their life miserable. They really, really feel miserable. So I would say the take-home message from what I said right now, and to answer your question about how to help how to eradicate the bad bacteria and to help the good bacteria to win are, first of all, not to take unnecessary antibiotics. And if you take antibiotics, to be very careful to take it or supplement it with probiotics. And if you want to develop good bacteria in your gut that the good guys will win, replenish them regularly with the right food for them. The right food for them is either probiotics, but better than that is to give them whole food, plant-based, which is rich in fibers. And the fibers are actually the secret how you can replenish the good bacteria. When you have a big amount of good bacteria, they don't allow the bad bacteria to grow. And that's the best way that you can win the battle against the bad bacteria. Does it answer the question?
Yes, doctor. Yes, doctor. That answers the
And
question.
hello, doctor. We have one more question. So while I was spreading awareness about veganism around people around me, so I consulted a dietitian through a friend of mine. So she was saying that veganism is not a better option. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are. You are.
So yeah, I was told that veganism is not a better option for both prenatal and postnatal. Also, she told me that to have the protein supplementary diet on a whole level, GMOs are taken, right? So genetically modified organic organisms food are taken in order to have whole protein supplements when following a vegan diet. So she was saying that GMOs will have an after effect for the mother and also child as well. So what's your take on this about genetically modified organisms, food from GMOs?
Oh, okay, I heard here several questions here. So
Yeah.
one question was about the protein, right?
Yes.
What was the question about protein exactly?
I was told that while changing our diet to vegan, in order to supplement our whole diet, so to take B12 or folic acid or whatever, so people are having options that are taken from GMOs, genetically modified organisms. So I was heard that GMOs will have a later effect on mother and the child as well while following vegan diet. So what's your take on this? Am I clear with the question?
So GMO has a later effect. So you ask actually if GMO is good for you or not?
Yes, the food supplied through GMOs, the supplements.
Okay, and how it, so I'm trying to understand. So what you ask is actually, you say that in order to replenish the protein, you need
Yeah.
to take GMO?
No, it's not like that. So we don't get B12 and folic acid, right, through vegan diet. So in order to have those, most of the supplements we have is through GMO foods, isn't it?
Oh, okay. So what you say is that in order to supplement with B12, we
Yeah.
need to take supplements that are GMO?
Yes.
That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Or that's what she's saying?
Yes. The
Yeah,
dietitian
yeah,
from
that's
India
right.
had told me.
Okay, so we need to take supplements that are produced through GMO
Yes.
in order to supplement vegan diet.
Yes.
And
I was
the and G-
I was actually told by a dietitian. I'm not sure. I'm just trying to have a take on your side, from your side.
no, that's fine.
Yep.
I try to focus it on the right
Yep.
place, because you mentioned B12 and folic acid that you need to take supplements that are made of GMO in order to supplement it, but you also mentioned protein. in order to supplement it that we need to take GMO, maybe protein made or something like that, right?
Yes, yes. Also, give me a second. I'll read out the message that I have been sent. Um, she says that veganism is not a wiser choice for both prenatal and postnatal. Although there are a lot of plant proteins available, mostly they are GMO foods, which can have an after effect. My take would be a no. Nutrient deficiency would be obviously protein, B12, and folic acid. And also there has to be a slow transition to veganism. So this is the message that have been sent. So what's your take on this?
Yes. Okay. Thank you for the thank you for the question. And it's again, it's a very common myth out there. It's I completely can debunk it, and I can tell you several things about each one of those things that you mentioned right now. First of all, protein. That's a very common. Uh, I would say. Questions that every vegan or plant-based person asks, what about your protein? You don't get enough protein. Sorry to say that that's completely nonsense. Because if you can compare the gorilla, what the gorilla eat?
Yes, plant-based food.
That's right. You see how the gorilla is built? Okay.
Yes.
Gorilla is completely based on plant-based. Do you think that he lack protein? I don't think that
No.
any gorilla thought that he lacks protein, okay?
Yes, yes.
It's completely nonsense. Now, in order to understand how nonsense it is, I would like to refer you to another documentary that you can watch it. It's called The Game Changers.
Yes,
That's
yes.
a documentary that was made in 2017. Watch it and see how the biggest, the strongest people in the world are completely plant-based. Okay,
Yes.
they don't lack any protein. More than that, I can tell you that all the proteins that you need in your body
Mhm.
comes from what sources? Do you know?
Yeah, even that eat meat to have a protein, the animal is getting protein from the plant itself. I am aware
Exactly,
of all these facts, but I have
exactly.
asked for the participants to know through your words.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So many people don't understand that actually the animal is, I would say, the middleman between the proteins that comes from the plants. We don't need to eat the middleman. We need to eat the plants. Okay,
Yes.
this is the source of the protein, much better, much healthier, and much more natural. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's a completely nonsense about you need protein. You don't need
Yes.
protein. You need the protein to take it from the food. You will get enough protein. Yes, you need to. I completely agree. If you will eat all the time only lettuce and those kind, you won't get enough protein for sure. You need to have a variety of food. What is the source of protein? Beans,
Yes.
tofu if you want. Uh, you all the grains they have protein in them. Okay, you have enough protein if you have variety of food. You'll get enough protein. More than that, I can tell you. The main problem these days is that not that people are lacking protein. The problem is that people have too much protein, and that's what causes a lot of diseases. So that's the problem. That's the main problem that we face this time in the Western culture. People get too much protein, and that's not good for the kidney, and that's not good for other places in the body. So no problem with protein. The thing about B12 and folic acid and other stuff, B12, as I mentioned before, is missing not only in vegan people. B12 is missing to everyone. Even those that eat meat, they don't absorb well the B12 and they need to get B12, most of them. and I can see it all the time in my clinic. Many people that comes that are meat eaters, they lack B12. Never mind what, you know, they can be completely based on meat and they don't get enough B12. They don't get enough vitamin D. They need these supplements, never mind what they eat, okay? Now, B12 and vitamin D and others, they don't need to come necessarily from GMO. There is B12 that is completely vegan, okay? And you don't need to be based on GMO. GMO is a completely different story. Now, the question about GMO, it's very, I would say, loaded, because many people will say GMO can be harmful. We don't have enough evidence these days to say the GMO is really harmful. There are a lot of fear and anxiety around it. I would say that so far, the GMO cause more good than bad. Many people or many places that were starving, they can get now food because they can get the GMO. So to tell you the GMO is necessarily bad, that's also something that was completely not, it's not based on fact. I want to refer you again, I want to refer you to a very important book that came out also recently. It's called Enlightenment Now by Steven Pinker. Can you try to give them the references, Aishwa? It's called Enlightenment Now. It's a very good book that will address also the issue of the GMO. Okay? And you can get there quite a bit of information about if the GMO is good or bad. And I would say don't be too afraid of the GMO right now. That's not a big deal. Now, as I said before, pregnancy, prenatal, postnatal, children, I can tell you, if you eat a variety of food, it's healthy. There is no problem whatsoever. A good book on that is this one, with a lot of information. Can you see it?
Yes, Vegan for Life.
It has a lot of information into it, and you can find there quite a bit of support to what I'm saying right now, that you can definitely have rely on that through pregnancy, through childhood, prenatal, postnatal, it's completely safe. There are a lot of myths around that. I heard about soy milk that is not good, which is completely nonsense. There is no evidence whatsoever that it's not working for you. Yes, there are allergies. There are allergies to many things. If someone has allergy, yes, you need to know if you're allergic to specific food, try to avoid it. But if you're not allergic to food, there is no reason to avoid it. Yes.
Also, there is a question that is the plant-based protein has lesser bioavailability?
No.
It is what? Planet?
There's a
Bioavailability.
plant-based protein has lesser bioavailability, or is it wrong?
Plant-based protein. I think that I understand where this question comes from. There is something in it about the bioavailability of the plant-based protein. Yes, it's much easier to absorb from meat. That's true. But that's the reason when you absorb from meat, that's the reason also that you absorb very easy the fat from the meat. And the fat from the meat sink in many places in your body that you really don't want it. It sinks in the arteries, it sinks in the belly, it sinks in other places because it's very easy absorbed in your in your body. The bioavailability of the protein of the plant protein is a little bit less, I agree, but it doesn't make it less good. You have all the variety of protein. It's a little bit less absorbed than the protein of the meat, but that doesn't make it, that doesn't make any problem there. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's very impressive that for you addressing all the questions we have asked so clearly. And it's also at the same time pity that most of the dietitians and doctors from India have been misleading people to not follow vegan diet. So, which is why I and Aishwarya tried our best to contact doctors abroad. And we are fortunate enough to have you here today. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for all of you, and it was a pleasure, my pleasure, to meet so many people that are interested in the vegan lifestyle. I'll be very happy to have it again, maybe in a few months' time, to see if there are more people that will be interested and more questions. And meanwhile, if there are any questions, Aishwa knows how to get hold of me. And I believe also that she can, use this recording and to send it to people that want to use it for many other people that couldn't participate tonight.
Yes.
Thank you very much, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
sir. Thank you.
Thanks to you, doctor, from my parents too.
Take care, and
One
have a
small
great-
question.
Yes, let's have less patient, more healthy people, and more green environment, healthy environment. Take care.
Someone asking one more question, doctor. Is it you, Swani?
No, no, no.
Yeah.
Someone.
I just want to know a small example of how a diet should be, a full day diet by Mr. Jerry or Mr. Gross. What they take and what components are there. I think yours is muted, madam. Hello. I had already put it in the chat actually.
Sorry, I think Dr. Gross has left for now. Maybe Jerry can answer this. Sir, could you please?
I'm sorry, I wasn't focused. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question is, I just want an example of your entire day's menu or what components go into your breakfast, lunch and dinner. It's just an example of how it can constitute your entire meal.
Sure. As I mentioned, my favorite breakfast is oatmeal. I like to have oatmeal with cinnamon and raisins. I forgot the raisins in there. Applesauce. I cook it all together with a little bit of flax, and then I top it with some whole fruit. And for lunch, quite often we'll have a vegetable-based soup of some kind. My wife likes to make a whole stock pot full of soup with different vegetables in it, which we then freeze and we have available for our lunches quite often. And then for supper, we would have a variety of vegetables. Instead of course, before we started the whole food plant-based diet, we used to build our meals around the meat, saying what kind of meat are we going to have today? Well, now we basically ask what kind of starch are we going to have as the basis for our meal. And so we'll choose like potatoes or beans or whole grains of some kind. And then we'll add other colorful vegetables, corn, zucchini, just any types of vegetables that we have available in the house, or that are available through the garden, and then so that's pretty much it. We totally are whole food, plant-based nutrition since September the 1st of 2013. And so when people ask the question about being short of protein, what I like to answer is, here I am, I'm 75 years old, I have 9 grandchildren, and I love to go swimming with them, I like to play with them, and I'm doing lots of things with them that many of the people that I grew up with cannot do anymore. But I am totally healthy, so is my wife, and we just enjoy life to the utmost with our whole food plant-based diet. I should mention as well, for anybody that has type 2 diabetes, as I had, that the oil part of it, the added oil part of it is very important. There is a book by Dr. Neil Barnard, who is in the Forks Over Knives video, called Reversing Diabetes. And he was the first medical doctor that I read where he talked about the impact of added oil. And I have to say that whenever I have added oil in my diet, like if we eat out at a restaurant or something and there's times that we can't control the amount of oil in the food, then the next morning my blood glucose levels are higher. And so added oil, the issue with added oil is that it gets into the cells and it stops insulin from doing its job. And I had never heard that before from any medical doctor, but I can tell you from my living experience that it's absolutely true, that added oil will impact your blood glucose levels. Do you have any other questions?
Thank you very much, doctor. It was clear. I have a small question. The problem with plant-based protein like beans and salads or fruits, if you have it at the after say sunset or something like that, it creates a flatulence for some people, especially women in the menopausal stages. How do you did you face any such problem, and how did you overcome it? If you
I have to say that I haven't totally overcome it. So yeah, there is an issue there, but quite frankly, I mean, I experienced flatulence before on a meat-based diet as well. So really, I haven't seen any significant change in that. It can be an issue for some people, I'm sure, but I guess it's like anything, that you find out the foods that have a negative impact on you, and you try to deal with that by avoiding them or reducing them. And so, for instance, with me, with my record of my history of diabetes, although I don't have it anymore and I don't have to take any medication for it, I have to be careful about the amount of foods that I have, especially with nuts and fats and oils. And so I try to reduce the number of foods with those in them. And so we all have our personal issues, and we have to learn how to deal with them. Sorry, I can't hear.
Thank you very much, sir, doctor. That was clear, quite clear.
Yes, thank you, Shivani, for for posting here an interesting question. And thank you, Jerry, sir. It's been very inspirational to hear your story. At such an age, it's been, your story has been very inspirational to many of the youth here. So many of us are thinking being in youth, being at such an young age, is it really going to help them to have a vegan diet or not? But with your story, it's been very clear that a man or a woman can be very healthy even at any age following a vegan diet. So thank you so much for taking your time out for us.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye bye.
We can end the session, right, Swan?
Yes, you can end the session, Aishwarya.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your participation. Thank you.